Welcome to the pre-show.
Welcome to the pre-show.
Yeah. So, Greg, this past weekend, we are recording this on the 17th of May. This past weekend were the Junos.
They were.
Yeah. Which celebrates. What does it celebrate? Do we say excellence in Canadian music? Or do we say we celebrate pop music? How would you describe the Junos without saying, oh, it's the Canadian equivalent of the Grammys? Or
No, I think it's a celebration of Canadian music.
Celebration of Canadian music. Yeah, that's the word.
And international music too. Sorry, because they have,
Yeah, we celebrate
international artists presented by Coca-Cola or whatever.
Yeah. I find it kind of hilarious that all the awards are sponsored.
No, but it's less that. It's more like why, and I think you and I have this discussion every year. We talk about the Junos. Yeah. It's like, why are we worried about celebrating international artists? That's not the point of this.
Yeah.
The point is to celebrate Canadian artists. So why do we have, I don't know. Whoever.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? Well, it's funny, they don't have it here. Although the Juno for the Fan Choice Award is a TikTok award. So that's kind of interesting. But let me click through to the website for all of the winners. Listen, sometimes it all boils down to money. Right. So if sponsor X is going to dole out thousands of dollars to sponsor an award, and that award takes 5 minutes of your time, then maybe it's worth having said award. Maybe that's how they look at it. Maybe it's another way to.
No, we've grown up. We've moved beyond that. We do not need. We do not need international. No, we need to celebrate Canadian music. But whatever.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. But I'm saying
old musician.
Maybe it's just a matter of money, right? Maybe it's just a cash grab.
Because Justin Bieber, Shawn Mendes, The Weeknd, who else?
No, there are popular Canadian bands. Absolutely.
So why do we need to celebrate Adele, Doja Cat, Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift, and the Kid Laroi? Who, by the way, I learned about him from my son, a young kid out of Australia.
Okay.
Along the genre of Machine Gun Kelly and
really?
And that kind of grandson, but he did the track with Justin the Biebs that did quite well. So and that's how I learned about him. Anyway,
yes, we are showing our listeners how hip we are by calling Justin Bieber
my kids
the Biebs.
Did you know how many former Welcome to the Music artists were nominees this year?
Oh, nominees? I don't know. Oh,
well, I believe we were either 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Well, last year we had winners. Right? Last year, we had some winners.
Okan, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Rock a Group as well. But the host.
Yes.
The host of the show, Simu Liu, was a guest on the Welcome with Kareem Kanji podcast.
Yes.
Which is a forefather to this podcast.
You had him before. You had him before.
Listen,
Marvel. You had him before Kim's Convenience. You had him when he was doing Dentine commercials, if I'm not mistaken.
No. I had him when he was on Kim's Convenience, but I think I had a role. Some would say a large role. Some people would say that. In helping to introduce him to a wider audience. So some might say might say that I had a role in introducing him to Disney, to Marvel.
Wow.
And some might say that if he was not on, it all of a sudden became dark here.
We're not going there again, are we? We got to get Justine Childs in on this conversation. Go ahead.
Some might say that without him appearing on my podcast, he might not have a best-selling book, have been the host of the Junos, been a host on Saturday Night Live, or been a star of a Marvel movie. So
some might say that.
Some might say. Many will disagree, but some might say.
Some might.
But no, congratulations to all of the winners. Mm-hmm. And I need to do some research and listen to some new music, because I don't know who this Charlotte Cardin, who won a number of awards, mm-hmm. including Artist of the Year. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I've ever heard her. I might have heard her music, but I don't know who that is. So I'm pleasantly surprised that we have some up and coming.
Okay, pop quiz.
Yes.
How do you pronounce the letters B, B, N, O, money sign?
BBNO dollar sign?
Yeah.
Bonobos? I don't know.
We were talking about this at dinner last night. Is it BB no money or BB no cash? I think it's BB no money. And
I don't. Is it baby no money?
Baby, BB, baby.
Canadian rapper.
I don't know if we should leave this in.
Listen, better known as BB. What does BBNO stand for? Baby no money.
Baby no money.
Yeah, not BB.
Not BB. Oh, the lights came on.
What is happening here? I don't know.
You've lived a whole day and a half during the pre-show.
Yeah. What is it? The light comes and goes. Oh, we've got the cleaners coming in, coming into the office. So BB No Money, baby No Money won. Did Baby No Money win some awards? Is that what we're saying?
I'm not sure.
No,
I'm not sure. Just Baby No Money performed.
Okay.
And it was just a hot topic of conversation last night about how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Mustafa was amazing.
Okay. You watched the whole show? I don't know. Should I not have said that because it shows you up? You didn't watch it, did you?
Did you not watch the show?
I didn't watch the show.
That's why I'm laughing. It's because like here we are talking about the Junos.
I watched it.
Oh, you watched it. We're gonna have a great conversation about the performances and.
I watched two performances, or maybe, one performance, two half performances in one. So I watched. I saw Snotty Nose Res Kids, mm-hmm. And the Junos need to do a better job of miking the crowd, because it seemed to be a very hot performance, but like it was as if they were in a isolated oxygen chamber where you couldn't hear anything but the music and their voice. It was too perfect. It was, it didn't feel like I was watching a live performance at Budweiser stage. And then I watched the last performance, your wife's favorite band, Arcade Fire.
Yep.
And they always put on a good show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is what I watched. I was busy watching Game 7 of the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, we're a music podcast, by the way. We're not a sports podcast. So
yeah, I know, but I'm just telling you what I was.
For future reference. For future reference, if you want to talk about the Junos.
I just thought I'd watch this. Listen, we have to give condolences to the Milgaard family. David Milgaard passed away.
Yes.
David Milgaard, if people are wondering who he is or what his connection to music is, he was wrongfully convicted decades and decades ago, spent 20 plus years in jail for a crime that he did not commit.
Nobody cares about something you didn't do.
Yeah, and the connection is that the Tragically Hip wrote a song called Wheat Kings to tell the story about David Milgaard. So, he served 23 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, which prompted Gord Downie, or inspired Gord Downie to write the song. Mm-hmm. In his words, this is what Downie said. Excuse me. It's about David Milgaard and his faith in himself, and about his mother Joyce and her absolute faith in her son's innocence, and about our big country and its faith in man's fallibility, and about Gail Miller. All those mornings ago, just lying there, all her faith bleeding out into that Saskatoon snowbank. Interesting tidbit about the song. So the title, Wheat Kings, is named after the farmers in Saskatchewan after they developed a popular strain of wheat that fueled the local economy there. That's why it's called the Wheat Kings. And at the beginning of the song, I think it's at the beginning of the song, there's a sound of a very specific bird that you're familiar with, the loon. And in fact, the sound of that loon, so this is what Rob Baker, guitarist, said. The man who recorded that actual sound was not paid for that sound. So the band made a donation in lieu of paying for that to the conservation group Ducks Unlimited in that person's name. So some fun facts in Canadian music.
There you go.
Brought to you by Coca-Cola.
TikTok.
Brought to you by TikTok. Yes.
And that's the pre-show.
Hi, the following podcast is brought to you by Radical Road Brewery, the best craft beer in the heart of Leslieville. Find them at 1177 Queen Street East. That's Radical Road Brewery.
Hey, I'm Domanique Grant. I'm a singer-songwriter from Toronto, Canada. Welcome to the music.
Welcome. Dominique, it's so great to have you on the show. We want to thank you for calling in from the UK, as we understand.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our first UK guest.
I think it's our first person calling in from the UK.
Yeah.
I believe you're correct.
There you go. I mean, we have been international, but this is like we're crossing oceans now, which is great. Dominique, what takes you to the UK?
So I'm currently, right now I'm in London. I'm working on some new music and collaborations, which I'm excited to, I can't announce yet, but I'm here pretty much working on some new music and also performing. So
awesome. Well, congrats on collaborating with Paul McCartney
how did you know?
Of the Beatles. I'll just throw that out there. Maybe it'll happen. But again, thanks so much for coming on. I wanted to, I was doing some research, on you, and just deep diving and trying to understand and find out, where does Dominique come from? What's her background? When did she get started in music? And for a while, I thought, okay, she's relatively new in music, and then I found out, oh my goodness, she's been singing, writing, performing since she was like yay high, as my parents would say. But you have been performing since you were a young child, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been performing for a while. I didn't actually just start in music. I was always playing instruments, but I was actually writing and performing in theater shows and theater productions. And that's how I really got into performing on bigger stages.
How did you get started in performing itself?
Um, I just was weird. I was a really weird kid, and my mom was like, "We need to do something with you, and we need an outlet because this weirdness just in space is not working for me." So
Okay. She
so
needed you to get out of the house. Is that what it was?
she needed me to get out of just randomly singing and creating things in class, with no outlet. Like I was just a little disruptive, to be quite honest. Um, and so we just looked around at community programs in Toronto, and there were like a bunch of theater programs. And the major theaters in Canada actually had emerging artist programs. So the first one that I did was with the Theater Passe Muraille, and I was kind of put on stage with like Dora award-winning directors and actors. And they also were like, we need someone to write music. So naturally I was performing in theater, but also singing, and kind of jump ahead after years of doing that. Someone actually scouted me from the Raptors. They were an entertainment scout, and they were at one of my shows, and they were like, you need to be writing music. And I was like, okay. And and that kind of inspired me to really move into recording and writing my own stuff. But I think I really got my start in just being on stage in theaters, to be quite honest.
So you go from theater to singing. Like, so what did that scout see in you? What did they say they saw?
So one of my songs in particular, I wrote a song called Free. This is the first song that I actually wrote. I think I wrote it when I was like 15, and I had just had it laying around. And I did a show with Judith Thompson. It's called The Grace Project Sick. And that show actually got nominated for a Dora, but the production and the music was nominated as well too. And so he heard that song and he was like, what is this song? And I was like, oh yeah, I just like wrote this song years ago and I really like it. And he was like, you need to turn this into an EP and into an album. And this theater thing is cute, but you need to be focusing on music. And so I think, to be quite honest, I think my journey has always been me kind of trying to figure out the pieces and then meeting people who just believe in you as an artist more than you see and reminding you that there's like bigger things to come. And I just kind of kept with developing and growing and yeah.
How old were you when this happened?
Oh geez, I think I was like 18. I
was
like 18 or 19. Yeah. So
okay. Sorry, Greg, I'll come back to you because I want to follow up with this one here. So I read that you have been a motivational speaker. So like when does this happen? Like when does motivational speaking happen in between theater and, theater's cute, but you need to be doing your own stuff and singing and recording?
They all happen at the same time.
Okay.
So my background is I grew up in like a really social and political neighborhood in downtown Toronto that had quite a bit of issues. And so I naturally was just like asked to talk about that experience, and I was put on stages. And so I think in between like maybe 16 to 21, I was performing in music and theater. I was also being asked to just talk a little bit about how we can imagine beyond the limitations of what's in front of us. And I, come from a single parent, family. My mom immigrated from Jamaica and she did the best that she could, but there are a lot of people, I think, in different neighborhoods that are struggling. And I just was given a platform to kind of talk to people about how I was always able to just like push all of the negativity aside and create a vision. And again, it just really started with like wanting to talk about something. And then someone coming along and being like, oh my God, you're super talented. I want to give you this platform. And so like, as an example, to kind of bring it together as to how the music and the theater and the speaking work, I think I was maybe 22 when I got one of my biggest music performances, and a singer-songwriter, like hip hop artist, his name's Emmanuel Jarrel. He came to my school to do an event and randomly was like, someone told me that you're an artist. Can you sing and talk to me about yourself? And I did. And he was like, great, you need to come on tour with me. And a week later, I was performing at the Guelph Hillside Festival with him for 50,000 people. And so this is what I mean. It's like, I think when people see speaking and they see music and they see theater, they see them as different, but they're really all very similar.
Okay.
We're bringing together a message and we're finding a way to connect with an audience. And so I think it's really just been about like all the pieces just kind of jumbled together. People just wanted to hear more about my story. And in one outlet, it was through music, through another, it was through like writing and theater shows. And through the other one, it was just speaking. And so.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Greg, go ahead.
It's interesting because I mean, to dovetail off that, like, you know, I wanted to talk about the DGC group, and like you seem very business oriented, like, right, and so I wanted to talk about sort of how you sort of built that business behind yourself to support you and others.
Yeah, and so we're now incorporated. So it's called Grant Creativity Inc. now, and I really started my company because there wasn't space for me anywhere. I think a lot of the time we think it's just like, you know, artists are just getting picked up by labels, or just like there's a conventional space for everyone, and there really wasn't. I didn't have management. I didn't really have a team, but I just kept having people that were trying to book me for events and for shows, and so the bigger shows started coming along, and I was like, oh my God, I have to have something in place. And so I literally started DGC Group / Grant Creativity Inc. out of just a need to make sure that I had something set up around me. And it's kind of expanded into just really understanding how to be an artist and an entrepreneur. When I see, you know, artists like Janelle Monáe, or I see someone like Jessica Alba, even 50 Cent, they are all talented artists who are really focusing on their own craft, but they have a business behind them. And, you know, Janelle, who I met maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I was in New York. She has Wonderland, and people don't actually know that she has had her own label behind her since she started. And that's kind of been the system of it. But for me, because I come from a community background, it's also important, aside from it just supporting my music, to really be able to, you know, give back, because I didn't always have people who invested in me. And so part of the work that I do with Grant Creativity Inc. is we also invest in emerging artists. We help to sponsor development. We help to pair them with opportunities with brands. We've worked with everyone from RBCxMusic to a bunch of other brands to really support young artists who don't have access, and to make sure that they have a platform and a space beyond what we traditionally think is accessible. And so again, I think my company just grew out of a sheer need to make sure that I had space for myself and that I could create space for others in a really innovative way.
Fantastic. I do want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about your mom being a single mom, and, you know, congrats on the release of the album. And I wanted to talk about the song "Save Me," because I know you know, deeply personal for you, as I understand. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but just about, you know, as I said, your mom, if I'm not mistaken, your mom being Christian, your dad being Muslim, if I'm correct with that.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. I don't want to get it wrong. And just like, you know, but I was hoping you could talk about the importance and the influence your mom had on you, and, you know, sort of in relation to that song, if I may.
Yeah. So first and foremost, "Save Me" was probably one of the most vulnerable songs I've written. And it terrifies me even like going on stage and performing it, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to really, really say these things that I actually feel. But I grew up like being taught maybe aren't okay to say. My relationship with my mom is great. My mom is one of my best friends. She is my biggest supporter. She's my biggest champion. But I did grow up, you know, in a Jamaican Canadian household where religion was very prominent, and that didn't necessarily mean that my mom was crazy strict, but it did mean that we were going to church every Sunday. We did get baptized. There were certain rules that I had to follow, and even after years and years and years of having to, you know, follow religion, you start to realize that there are certain things that you no longer have to be told to do, because it really influences your decisions. And so "Save Me" is about wanting to be this person that is perfect and can heal and can forgive, but is actually just broken in the process and doesn't know where to start. And it's also just a little bit about being disappointed in myself, because when you go to church throughout most of your life, you are literally around people who are telling you and teaching you these things that you should know how to do automatically. But I just didn't know how to do it. I was really angry. My father on the other side is Muslim, and he was in and out of my life. But having those two juxtapositions just meant that there was a lot of truth that I wanted to tell. And I had these filters all around me that I couldn't really speak beyond, because I had to really push through that. So I think Save Me is kind of just asking for help and being like, I want you to save me, but I just don't know how to save myself. And I think that's a bit about the song.
Yeah. And I think it was to do with the song as well. It was, I think, a Q interview, and you said a phrase that just really struck me. And I think, if I don't want to get a context, but I think you were talking about your dad at the time, but you said something like hurt people. And I was just like, honestly, I was just like, wow. Like, I mean, we've all dealt with many things in our lives. I can't even fathom what, your life and vice versa. But yeah, that really struck me. That really struck me.
Well, thank you. And that's one of the lyrics in the second verse of the song. And I think that the context of that was, I've had to adopt a really new understanding about healing and forgiveness. And that I used to be someone who, because I'm very, I grew up being taught that you just have to be kind all the time. Like, even when people are terrible, you just have to be kind because you got to be good. And that kind of expanded into not always knowing how to speak up for myself. But over the last year or two, I've been able to flip that and to understand that you don't need to get angry. You just need to understand that when people are trying to hurt other people, it's not just because they're bad, it's because they're hurt and they haven't healed and they don't know how to love. And so I think that's where that came from, and just trying to really understand self-love, healing, forgiveness, but really taking it back to that basic thing. When someone is being terrible to you, they're hurt and they are trying to find an outlet for you to be that, and they don't know how to channel it. So I'm glad that connected with you also. It's one of my favorite lyrics.
I want to go back. We're going to go back and forth with a bunch of stuff, Dominique. But when you performed the song in the empty streets of Toronto, or in a particular neighborhood, back in 2020, April 2020, you sang the song Till We See the Sun. Tell me about, I'm curious about the neighborhood, if that was intentional, where you sang it, where, you were carried through. Tell me a little bit about that neighborhood specifically.
Yeah, so that neighborhood is called the Esplanade. The Esplanade is a mixed income neighborhood. It's very similar to the neighborhood that I grew up in, but it's one of the other ones that are in downtown Toronto. I actually performed in the Esplanade because there was an organization there called Grammy Esplanade, and they reached out and they were like, we want to do something and we don't know what to do, but we really want to lift people's spirits. And they were like, can you sing? And so they actually invited me to come over because they built this social distance thing called the Kissany Hub, which is like a chair. It has a bike at the front, and then it has a performance space on the back. And that's what you see in the video. There's someone riding a bike. And it was built like that because at the time, if you remember, like, I don't even think we were allowed to do that performance, to be quite honest. So we had to be so careful about it. But the Esplanade is a mixed income neighborhood that has a lot of rich culture. It also has a lot of, seniors and a lot of people who were really struggling at the time. And so the performance, Jamie was just like, can you do something? And I was like, sure, I'll come. And then the day before I was like, I'm just going to write this random song because my mom told me to write it. She's like, write something. You're miserable, you're depressed, and the world needs music and you need to do something about it. Like, this is not the time for you to be down. And so I really could not have imagined that song and just literally going into the streets and performing it for like buildings I thought were empty would bring me to one of the best parts of my career. And I still don't really understand it. I think the only thing that I've really been able to grasp is that if you create something from a really meaningful place and you have a story to tell, people will resonate if it comes from an authentic space. And I think that's all I've really been able to make sense, because I woke up the next day and it was on every media channel that I knew of. And we didn't put marketing dollars into it. We didn't have a marketing plan. And a lot of the places that it was playing, I don't even think you can pay money to get it on. So it was just a really interesting 2020 was a really crazy year, to be quite honest.
Yeah. What's going through your mind? How is your body feeling as you're, because it's a very, I don't want to say it's a somber song, but it's a very, it's a song that you're sitting in, you're calm as you're singing. But at the same time, you're in a world that is vastly different than we've ever experienced. And especially, if you think about a month or 2 months before and where you are, that's like two different worlds that we're living in. Tell me about what's happening to you as you're being driven through the streets and you're singing this song.
Okay, well, first, I think we need to bring people back to 2020. Like, I don't want to do that, but
Sure.
That day when we went into the street, like that wasn't just like a casual day. That was the day when restrictions were just announced. Everyone was getting ready to go into the first lockdown that we've ever had. We've never even heard of what a lockdown is, and it's a global lockdown. We're seeing all these ridiculous images on the TV of people just dropping in the streets, and us thinking there's this thing coming that's just taking lives, and then on top of that, the streets are bare. There's no one outside, and so. I was terrified, to be quite honest, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're so courageous. But I want you to put yourself in the situation of going into a neighborhood and performing for buildings and not knowing if anyone's hearing you, performing a new song and not really knowing the outcome of it. I was literally in a street in front of a building with maybe 400 or 500 people. And I had no idea if anyone was even home. But as an artist, that's terrifying, because I think one of your biggest fears as an artist is no one hearing you and no one liking your music. And so I was very somber writing that song, because I wrote it at 8 a.m. I started writing it at like 6 a.m. because my mom called and told me to get up. And I wrote it from a place of just trying to understand and make sense of the fact that 2 tours got canceled. I had no source of income. I couldn't see my grandma for a really long time. And I just didn't know when anything was going to be happening. And so I was trying to find light for myself, to be quite honest, because I was I was really unclear. And then being asked to actually perform that for people who might have also been in that space, it started out as fear, but I think maybe a minute into the performance and realizing that people were cheering and that they were in tears, I was like, oh, this is what it's about. Like, maybe you're not just here to perform a song. Maybe you've actually been brought here because there are people who literally need this music in order to have a little bit of hope. And I think that those moments, and that moment in particular, seeing a woman in a robe, an elderly couple looking through their window, a little girl on the other side who's not coming outside because literally we're not supposed to go outside. I just realized that, like, this is like humanity. Like, I think it seems like it's about the music right now, but it's really about, we're human beings who are all going through a really hard time, and no one has any answers. And we're all just hopefully looking for a little bit of hope to get through the next day. And so, this conversation makes me so emotional going back there too, because I think we forget that it was a really hard time for people.
It was a collective experience, right? That we were all, like, everybody was going through their own thing, but it was a collective experience that we were having at the time.
I think so. And I think the other thing to remember is there has never been a point in time where you would have 300 people all open their curtains in robes, with their children, all home, not able to work, who are literally just looking for some hope. Like, that hasn't happened, and I don't know if it will happen again. And so I think that it was a collective experience. And I think that we were all able to kind of shed a lot of the things that we put up in order to feel important and to have an ego. And for the first time, and since I've been on this planet, there was nothing else except for just ourselves.
I hope you don't mind me going here, Dominique, but this wasn't the first time that you've written a song from sort of an emotional place, an emotional space. You lost a family member earlier on in what Toronto called the Year of the Gun. Your song Young World. Is that what it was called? Young World?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the person that, if it's okay, tell me about the person that you lost. You know, who were they? Who were they to you? What kind of an individual were they?
Yeah. So it was my older cousin Sasha. He was like, my family is really great in that all of our cousins, we all have a cousin that's the same age as us, and he was one of my oldest cousins at the time. I think he was 24. But yeah, it was a horrific experience for anyone to go through. His life was taken in a very unjust way, and the event got the highest sentence for anyone who's committed a crime in Canada. They called it the Mother's Day shooting, and I don't often talk about it because it's just kind of another layer to the things that I've experienced. But I think that Young World was also similar. It was about trying to find light. I was, I think, 17 at the time when I wrote that song and when that happened, and I just didn't really know how to process it. You know, it's processing grief, it's processing pain, it's processing something that is hard to deal with. And my family, took us years to figure out a way to even have a conversation about it. But yeah, Young World is another song. I guess maybe there's a pattern here, and that song was just written to find light in a dark time. And Young World, ended up, being placed in some really cool places. And there have been some really prominent events in Canadian history. And, I've been invited to perform that song as a song for healing. The victims of Orlando, there's quite a few of them where I was, invited to be a special guest in order to perform that music. And so I think I am realizing, I guess, through this interview that maybe there is a bit of a pattern in that. I've had some really challenging times, and maybe just a general thing to take away is that a lot of us are struggling with a lot, and we're all trying to figure out a way to move through it. But for me, I've just been taught that you have two options. Your one option is that you stay in the darkness and you let it take over, or the second is that you create your own light. And there's a quote that my mom taught me when I was really young, and it's, there can be darkness on the entire planet, but darkness can't put out the light of a single candle. And you always got to figure out a way to be that light.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So so I'm curious how you approach music. You've had these events, whether it's an event that happened that affects you on a personal level, or whether it's an event that affects the collective that we all participated as individuals. How do you approach music today, like new music? And when you decide to perform some of these songs that come from a place that of healing or of hurt, and you perform them today, like, do you perform them from a better place? Do you take yourself back to those times?
I think that every performance is different. I'd say so first, on the songwriting side, I think that great songwriters, good songwriters, just songwriters in general, you always have to bring yourself to the space of vulnerability. And it doesn't so much become about your pain or about your hardship or about what you do or don't want to talk about. It becomes about what is the story that you're telling, and what is the conflict. And I think that that's a really interesting thing that I've just learned is, you take vulnerability in something that feels really uncomfortable to share, and then you ask what the conflict is, and you figure out what the resolution is, and then you come up with the concept and you put it out into the world. And so this is like not necessarily tied to me, but if you listen to, for example, any of the music that Justin Bieber writes, or all of his songs like Sorry or Lonely, they're all based on there being a conflict, an internal conflict, and a conflict with the outside. And so I think that with any song that I perform, I write it from the space of whatever I'm going through at the time. And when I perform it from the space of wherever I am at the time. But I always bring myself into the song to ensure that the audience can really resonate with the authentic place that it was written from. And so it does obviously take, something like Save Me, although it was written, maybe a year or two ago. my songs bring me right back to when it was written, and it just kind of engulfs me in the emotion. And then I'm like, all right, hopefully that's served its purpose. So,
Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yes, very much so. So one of the songs that I wanted to talk about was Airbrush. I mean, in the conversation Kareem and I had right before we jumped on here, I don't think it was in the pre-show. I think it was just more of the two of us. And Kareem said to me, Greg, you really aren't on Twitter anymore, are you? Because I left like a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm done. It was around the Elon Musk thing, or around that time frame. And I'm like, yeah. And so we had a discussion about Facebook and that. But I mean, I just wanted to have a quick touch on, that song and the topic of, beauty and expectations and the impact of social media. If you can share some of your thoughts.
Airbrush. So Airbrush is one of my favorite songs. And again, that is a song that was written from a place of frustration and pain. I'm like, it's hard talking about beauty standards, but it was flipped around and turned into satire. Airbrush is about just being sick and tired of these ridiculous standards that are set online. I used to try to fit into all these trends. I used to try to do all these things to go viral. I used to listen to my influencer friends who were like, oh, you got to do this. And then I would listen to industry people who'd be like, oh, you got to do this. And at the end of it, you're just like, who the hell am I supposed to be? Like, what is this about? But I think the underlying thing is that for women, for Black women, for queer, trans, whatever the title is and the label is, there are boxes for all of us. And oftentimes when you operate outside of that box, people don't really want to see it or hear it. I am a Canadian artist that's Black with blue hair that grew up learning 3 different languages and who sings and raps and is a pop artist, but also loves Bon Iver,
Oh, there you go.
It's just, there just wasn't always space for me. And so Airbrush is a song. I just flipped all of the things that I was told that I needed to be in order to go viral. I flipped it on its head and turned it into satire. And, I just was like, I'm gonna just be myself. And that's what it is. But I think it's also a song and a message for everyone else. Like, we're all on like this virtual space as musicians. Social media makes me anxious. Like, I have to work in order to like be online all the time. And I love my fans, which is why I do it. But, there's cancel culture. There's there are filters. There's makeup. It's like you go online and your makeup and your hair, your edges aren't laid properly. Female terms, and people aren't okay with you not looking perfect. And I'm like, who the hell looks like this in real life? Like, no one looks like this. And so, anyway, Airbrush is just a really honest, authentic song about all those things. It's breaking standards. It's redefining them, and we have to all operate on this space online. And it's just a song about being yourself. And at the end of the day, your fans are going to gravitate to you being authentic with who you are. And I think the final thing with the song was I had one of my mentors was like, hey, this is when we were coming up with the branding and marketing for the EP. And I was like, oh yeah, like I should probably go in a new direction. Like, I think that I could do this and I could get more views. And they were just like, I'm just going to let you know that I have a Grammy. And I have other friends that have Grammys, and the friends that are at the top of their game that didn't stay true to who they are, they're miserable and they can't be happy with everything that they have. So whatever you need to do in order to like fight this need to go viral, make sure that underneath it all, you're you. And I was like, all right, that's all I need. I'm going to keep this blue hair and I'm going to keep singing Bon Iver and I'm going to be weird. So that is
awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Greg is now convinced to go on TikTok and just be himself. He was so afraid he had to be someone else.
Greg, we're ready. TikTok.
Yeah, Greg, listen. Even white middle-aged men can be on TikTok.
There's a lane for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to stay in my lane and it's not on TikTok.
Greg. All right. Fair enough.
Great.
Domanique, I understand you have a song you'd like to perform for us today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the song.
Yes. So I am performing my song, Real Me. Real Me is a song about learning to be okay with your flaws in relationships. It was produced by Jarrel The Young, who was recently nominated for a Grammy on Drake's album. And it was co-written by Kiki Rowe of Sony Music. So this is Real Me. And here we go.
Sorry in advance for trying to make you jealous. Meeting up with my ex just to see if it would matter. Starting fights, I know the makeup is better. Wonder why you stay when I know you could do better. Sorry in advance that our trust is ruined. When I get angry, I threaten to go in. I test your love by testing your devotion to me. I'm sorry, don't know why I do this. Deep down I'm trying to be a better human. I'm sorry, I'm a little insecure in my ways. I know you deserve more, but what's love without pain? You love me anyway. Can you love me? Can you trust the real me? I'm sorry in advance if I break your heart. I know sometimes I'm a little scarred, but can you love me? And baby, it's just my emotions. I get jealous, act real broken, and I can't afford to fix it right now. Will you hold me in the moment? Can you take my flaws and ignore it? If I mess up over and over, will you hold me down when no one's around? Can you take my flaws and ignore it? If I mess up over and over, will you hold me down when no one's around? Can you love me? Can you trust the real me? I'm sorry in advance if I break your heart. I do some dumb shit, I'm a little scarred, but can you love me?
Thank you so much, Dominique. Yeah.
Awesome.
Dominique, we have a segment on the program called Lost Venues, where we ask our guests to revisit a place. Maybe it's a funny story, maybe it's a sad story, maybe it's an embarrassing story about a performance or an event that happened at a venue that no longer exists. So, Dominique, what is your lost venue?
Okay, so the venue that I'm going to talk about. Okay, actually, I have two venues, and I'm going to have to pick one. But I want to clarify: are you wanting a venue specifically in Canada, or can it be anywhere?
No, anywhere in the world.
Okay, so here is my story. I was invited to perform for World AIDS Day in Uganda, Pepsi, and it was about 40,000 people. It was huge. It was a lot. And the venue is no longer there because it was torn down because it was built. So there's a crafty way of answering this question. But it poured rain right before the concert, and all the speakers and monitors blew out. So the crowd could hear the music, but the artist on stage couldn't hear anything. And there was nothing that we could do because it was being televised for over 150,000 people. So my experience with performing for the largest audience that I had ever performed for internationally was going on stage and not being able to hear myself after it didn't just rain, it poured. If you've ever been to any part of East Africa or to Africa as a whole, the rains are not regular rains. If you get caught, everything will ruin you and there is no coming back from it. And so my love for that performance was that I realized that in moments like that, you're training as an artist, and you practicing behind the scenes is what will allow you to still be able to go on stage and to perform regardless of not being able to hear yourself. My frustration with that situation is that I had to go on stage without hearing myself, and I was terrified, but I made it through and I was better because of it.
Nice.
And
awesome. Where in Uganda did you perform?
Oh my God, what is it called? Entebbe.
Entebbe. So you were near the airport.
Yes.
Nice. Both of my parents are refugees from Uganda.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Have you been?
I have been once.
Okay.
Yeah. In 2010, 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I went with my wife. My cousin lives in Entebbe, so we visited her. Went to Uganda. Went to the village that my dad grew up in.
Wow.
So it was a really, really great experience. But probably Uganda has the best weather. It's right on the equator. It's not too hot. It's like perfect. The weather when we were there, the weather was just perfect. Yeah.
It is really good. I think the dry season though can get really, really hot, but you get used to it, and it's like a better type of heat than I think like Toronto heat or like Canada heat, because so
it's just hot, but you don't feel you're walking into a wall of heat.
Yep.
It's just like paradise.
That's
Dominique,
awesome.
thank you so much. I think Greg has a final question or two.
I actually have two questions. I have two questions for you.
All right.
So the first question for you is, what was that first song for you that was the aha moment that you wanted to be a musician?
Greg, this is a good question.
All right.
Yeah, I need to write down the dates. Greg came up with a good question on May the 17th, 2002. This is he does this, Dominique. He does this. He does this like once every 4 to 6 months. He'll have a good question. So I need to stand up and give a little bit of applause.
You guys are funny. Oh my goodness. Oh jeez. I'm just
maybe not the one then. A song that really inspired you as a young person to play music.
Trying to figure out which one. My mom played a lot of music in the house. I listened to a lot of Aretha. I listened to a lot of Tracy Chapman. I listened to a lot of Bob Dylan and Bob Marley. And Whitney. Jeez. Trying to think. And Alanis. Hey, there were a lot of artists. I am trying to think of which one. Okay, so I'm going to give two answers because I just can never give one. This has been a childhood thing. Like, I can never give one answer.
Why your mom wanted you to get into theater, right?
Literally, she's like, stop this. Two answers when people want one, and we're tired of this. Okay, stop it. The first one is Redemption Song by Bob Marley. That just in itself, I feel like Bob wrote music that we don't even have to really talk about. You just hear it and you're like, oh, this has a message and this is commercial and this is great. And so that because my parents are Jamaican and Bob Marley was just a huge inspiration for me. I'd say the second one, you're going to laugh, but I Want to Dance with Somebody, Whitney Houston.
Yeah. Laugh?
Yeah, it's just they're so different, but Whitney for me helped to redefine what a pop artist is supposed to look like. There were no boxes for her. Her music was pop, her music was soul, her music was so many different things, and she was able to break the charts in ways that a lot of artists have a lot of difficulty today. But I think I Want to Dance with Somebody, if you listen to it, it's a sad song. It's about being lonely in your bedroom and wanting to dance with someone, but it was turned into a song of dancing and celebrating.
Dance song,
yeah. And so I feel like that's kind of at the top of the list because I started realizing that you can say things and take sad experiences and you can turn it into pop and soul and dope music.
That's awesome. Thank you. The other question I have for you that we all ask all our guests before we finish up is, what's in your earbuds lately? What are you listening to that people should be checking out?
Ooh. So I love Bon Iver. I listen to him every day. Like his music brings peace to me. So I'd say that. I'm trying to think of some local artists because there's like a lot of really dope artists right now that are doing really great. My homegirl Havaya Mighty, if you don't know her, check her out. She just won Juno for hip hop artist, first female. I'd say she's someone that I listen to quite a bit. I love me some Lizzo, Frank Ocean, but Frank's stuff is like Frank just disappeared and no one knows where he is, and his music is really great. And I'd say I always love me some Emily Sandé. I don't know what it is about her music, but it's just like she just writes it from just like there's like a cry in her tone and in her voice, but she just has really great songwriting. So I feel like maybe that little group right now.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you for bringing in the
Havaya Mighty.
And bringing us back to the pre-show, because we started at the pre-show talking about the Junos. So thank you for bringing us full circle as we wind up this chat. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dominique, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for staying up late to chat with us. If people want to find out more about what you're up to, consume your music, where do they need to go?
Yes, you can go to DomaniqueGrant.com. I'm on Instagram at Doma Grant. So it's DOMAGRANT. And then you can find me anywhere under my first name, DOMANIQUE, and last name Grant, GRANT.
Awesome.
Check out the new album and EP, sorry. It's QueenDom Chapter 1 Queen. You can find that on Spotify, on all streaming platforms pretty much right now. And thank you in advance for the love and the support.
Congrats on the double EP. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for your time today.